When We Disagree is a show about arguments, how we have them, why we have them, and their impact on our relationships and ourselves. One of the most famous debates on the internet happened in 2015. Someone posted a picture of a dress on social media and said, "Help me settle a debate. Is this dress blue and black or white and gold?" A BuzzFeed writer named Kate Holderness then wrote a short article about this post about the dress, and it blew up, captured the culture's attention. The BuzzFeed article got north of 70 million views in just a couple of days, and virtually every news and culture website published a take on the color of this one random dress, and seemingly everyone had an opinion about this one random dress as well. What seemed like a basic factual question, I saw the dress is black and blue by the way, had this outsized impact on our shared perception of reality. Were we all walking around all the time seeing the world differently? Can I assume that you and I see the same red light or red stop sign, or do I need to confirm that our senses match all the time with questions like, do you see what I see? And more broadly, what kind of sense should we make over disagreements about what's real? At least 3 different points of view seem to come to mind. First, we can take a fully relativist point of view, perhaps a little bit of a nihilistic approach, and say that we're all unique and all seeing and experiencing our own different realities all the time. Second, we can say that there is a norm, that this dress was made from blue and black fibers objectively, and that typical brains or eyes might see that, and atypical brains might process that information or those colors differently. This second point of view, of course, can veer towards a pathological view and see the typical brain positively and the atypical one negatively, or it can set up a celebratory point of view about divergence and diversities. Third, we can say that the truth is out there, but it's just really hard to find. Sometimes we think we see the truth with our whole hearts, but we don't, and sometimes we can feel lost, utterly confused, but we actually know the truth the whole time. Either way, the conclusion is not that there is no truth or that everyone experiences their own truth, but instead that the truth is very hard to access, but discoverable nonetheless. I'm Michael Lee, Professor of Communication and Director of a Civility Initiative at the College of Charleston. Today's guest on When We Disagree is Mikaela Neubauer. She is the Community Services Coordinator at the Brookings Public Library in Brookings, South Dakota. She's also pursuing her Master's in Library Science at Emporia State University, and she loves cats. Mikaela, tell us an argument story.
Hello, thank you for having me on. So my argument story starts where many arguments start. Thanksgiving dinner table, of course. So we're talking amongst the family. I am probably the more liberal one in our family. And we're talking about kind of the origins of Thanksgiving. And, you know, my dad is extremely conservative and also learned what he learned in the, 60s and 70s. And so I'm talking about genocide. I'm talking about colonialism. I'm talking about how the myth of Thanksgiving is, questionable at best, and terrible at worst. And so we're going along, and my older brother, who has a 17-year age difference, so way older, and he and my dad start ganging up on me. And they just don't want to listen to what I have been saying about these truths that I believe, that I think history has proven, about Thanksgiving. And so just remember being so struck by how they saw it as a joke rather than something to learn from. And that was something that really struck me, because I love having open and honest conversations, but they weren't willing to do that. So,
Do you mean a joke in the sense that they were mocking what you were saying?
yeah,
Okay.
yep. They very much pushed back, making loud, loud commentary about how Christopher Columbus is the best. And you
Oh,
know what? Was Nina Pinta and Santa Maria ships were doing great work and stuff like that. Just really, really not taking it seriously and not being willing to have a conversation about it. And it just drove me nuts.
is that frequent, that dynamic, both where it's a gang
Yeah.
up on situation and where it's a mocking situation?
I mean, my dad was extremely conservative, um, and he very much had his strong opinions. He would allow people to have their opinions, but he would never accept or listen. But when my older brother was around, then it became a joke. I swear they had kind of a, like they wanted to one up each other on how funny they were or how, right they were. And so I think the worst came out when they were together. So it very much became a joking thing where I'm not the right one in this situation. They're totally right and they have the answers and therefore they can joke about it and make me feel not so great about the situation. So,
Yeah, and this is something that routinely seems to happen in the
mhm,
culture. Usually it seems like it's not in person, but of course it could be in person where one person is participating in more or less good faith, which is that they
right.
presume this argumentative encounter is about persuasion, is about me
Mm,
marshaling my best case on behalf of whatever the case is, in this case, Thanksgiving, and then you doing the same in turn. And we kind of see who's got the better case. The force of the better
right.
argument is the nerdy way to talk about this. But in this case, we have one party who, at least the way you're characterizing what you're doing, is you're talking about your history as you see it, your understanding of history as you see it. They don't seem to be doing that. If in my
No.
read of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, my read of this is they're actually saying things they probably themselves don't believe.
I and see that's where I don't quite know. I wanted to engage in that conversation so that I understood where they're coming from. Do you actually believe this? Did you learn this in school? And you still are sticking to it. But they're not open to learning and they weren't open to having that conversation. So I don't know if they actually believed it or they were just throwing stuff at me, joking around. So I still to this day kind of wonder if, they genuinely believe this or it's just something they were playing with. So,
Two things seem possible here, and I'm wondering how you would sort these polarities out.
mhm,
One, they do believe this, and they were
yeah.
so self-righteous in their convictions about Christopher Columbus and or Thanksgiving and or anything else that they wanted to throw at you, that they were exhibiting genuine joy in presenting their best case. That's the one that I have a lot of suspicion about, but I'll just leave it out there.
Yeah.
And or in this other moment, they were both enjoying the routine, the bit that they were doing, and the bit that they're doing is seeing who can make you the maddest and then see
Oh, yeah.
how much joy they themselves can extract from your tears or frustration or anger. And so they're engaged in a kind of elaborate familial Thanksgiving
Yep.
Schadenfreude.
Very much. And I do think that's probably more of the case cuz again, they're smart, reasonable usually dudes. However, just in these moments they get together and they gang up. And so I think it's probably the latter. I think you're right there. Um but yeah, it's that's just Thanksgiving in a nutshell sometimes with family.
What would
Oh,
happen if this was one on one? If you were just talking with your dad and you said, "Hey, Dad, let's go take a walk or get a drink or whatever
yeah.
and talk about this." Similar vibe or a different
That's a
demeanor?
good question, and I never tried it. My father passed away in 2020,
Mm.
so I don't get the chance to try it, but, I don't know, because I mean, I was mocked when I registered as Democrat, when I was, a brand new voter. I have always kind of been the person in the family who has strong opinions, but my strong opinions are never actually listened to. And so I'm wondering, like, would he have engaged in a respectful conversation with me one on one? Quite possibly. We had really, really good conversations, but he wasn't terribly open to changing his own opinion. So he might have listened, but I don't think he ever would have changed an opinion.
How does this instance at Thanksgiving affect your memory, the legacy your dad has in your life?
Yeah. And that's one of the things where you have to balance, especially in grief, I think, balance the reality of the person you lived with and loved with the posthumous view of them, of the sanctification sometimes of someone. You see them in a better light than they actually were, and
Mm.
I've really had to come to terms with that. I mean, my father had a lot of flaws, and there are even things that have come out, of family chit chat, of where I go, oh, that wasn't a nice thing to do, or oh, that was questionably, a little too harsh, or he wasn't open to this, that, and the other. And I have to recognize that while he was a really good guy and helped out a ton of people and loved us fiercely, and was a creative, funny, charming man, that doesn't negate the fact that he had some qualities that really irked me, and
Yeah.
things that he wasn't open um to listening to. And so that's something I look back on and I have to kind of wrestle with.
What about you and your brother? Do you discuss anything contentious now? And B, when and if you do you find yourself locked in these same kinds of roles where you are trying to speak truth to power and talking about the importance of history that's been whitewashed and he's mocking you the whole way through?
Yeah. I'm gonna be real. I mean, the 17-year age difference between me and my brother kind of is a huge canyon to
Mm.
bridge. Because he's my half brother. And so um the family dynamics weren't really there when we were growing up. And so we don't talk a ton, and when we do, I just kind of try to keep the peace, because I know that he also is almost probably more conservative than my father was. And he's an Iowan farmer, really stoic, very, I don't know, just not a big talker, not a big discusser of things.
Strong silent
So
type.
yeah, I don't really get to talk to him about this kind of stuff until, a bigger thing triggers me to go off, such
Hmm.
as, the holiday of Thanksgiving.
Let me ask you about your role in this, and I was going to ask you about
Mhm.
your self assessment of your own conflict style, and you mentioned
Yeah.
being a peacekeeper, a peacemaker. But I'm curious if when because it sounded like this Thanksgiving instance is emblematic of a larger pattern
Yeah.
where you are trying to be sincere and are being mocked in your sincerity. It's a glib question to ask, but I'll just ask it as glibly as I can. Why
Go for
participate?
it. Because I can't shut up. I'm gonna be real. I just have the strong opinions that I have, and I think it's because my family did raise me to believe that I can voice these opinions in and be a strong person. They just didn't expect them to be differing opinions from what they believe. And so very much like I just want to get it out there. And I think I hold on to the very, 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 very small hope that one day I might change someone's opinion. And that may happen. That totally may happen. But the thing with civil discourse is not always, you don't always want to go in and change someone's opinion. Sometimes it's really about going in and changing someone's perspective a little bit, just allowing them to see the other side of things. Doesn't have to be, all of a sudden they believe what you believe. It's just they can take a look from the other side. And that's kind of what I always try to, when I get into these discussions, whether it's with, family members or community members or friends, it's just, I want them to see my side of it, so that, and then I want that exchange, and it very rarely turns into that exchange. So
I'm interested in two things you said that kind of butt up against each other. And it seems like two versions of yourself in a way. One, which is it's captured in Mikaela, the peacemaker who can't shut up, right? So on the one hand,
it's true.
You want to make peace, keep the peace, avoid difficult topics, make sure that there is a kind of comfort level in the home or around the dinner table. And at the same time, you can't shut up and you want to be heard. And I'm wondering about that hope part that you talked about, that small glimmer of hope. Is that hope about wanting to be heard? Or is that hope about wanting to change minds?
That's a really good question. Honestly, well, of course, everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be validated in some way, to know that their beliefs are, valid. I get that. But I truly think I just have this idealistic sometimes view of the world where I just want us to all get along, which sounds so silly, but I mean, truly, I do wish to change minds sometimes, and that's not always the most wise goal, but I do feel like it's a combination, but it's more that I want to get a conversation going, get perspectives swapped and stuff like that. So
it's a powerful dream of peaceful coexistence.
And if only.
And if only. And I'll sort of close with a big question about that hope, which is, you want to change minds, you want to be heard, and the powerful legacy, at least as I'm hearing it from the story of Thanksgiving, is that in the pursuit of those hopes, you were mocked. And so what is the takeaway lesson here for you?
I mean, I think for me, it's kind of, I'm a stubborn person. And so for me, it's kind of grow thicker skin, girl. Keep going. Like, if people are going to mock you about what you believe, like, you better be ready to stand your ground, back it up. Like, I don't necessarily mean that I need to argue further and just like push back against this mocking, but like, be okay with believing what you believe and accept that not everyone's going to be there. Not everyone's going to pick up what you're putting down. But you still got to persist, I think, and try to have these conversations, because they're so important, to just bridge gaps, bridge divides between perspectives. So I think my goal is perseverance from this story. So,
Mikaela, thank you so much for being on When We Disagree.
Thank you. Have a great day.
When We Disagree is recorded at the College of Charleston with creator and host Michael Lee. Recording and sound engineering by Jesse Kunz and Lance Laidlaw. Reach out to us at whenwedisagree@gmail.com.